episode 2 from a wide nation of sports. What's up, fam? I am your host, Hunter Tickle. Let's get into it. We got a little to get into today here on this Thursday, June 6th, on the, not even the eve, it's the day of, hours before here, the game 1 of the NBA Finals. We are here, the big moment for the association that happens annually. That's going to be my lead today. For me, man, it doesn't get much better. I mean, you got March Madness, you got the World Cup. I'm a big soccer and basketball guy. Super Bowl is pretty high up there as well. But I was going to say top 5 is the NBA Finals, but maybe even top 3. And that may even be higher considering the World Cup isn't happening every year, every 4 years. So I want to take you down memory lane. Top 3, as I said, for sports, my favorite sporting spectacles, events, tournaments. So I'm going to set the scene here for you all by going down memory lane. So when I was 10 years old, I moved to the east side of Cincinnati. And again, it came right around the time of the NBA Finals. That was June 6th, 2001. I remember we unpacked all our luggage, all our couches, TVs, clothes, all the furniture we had, everything we had. We were moving from Naperville, and we were a family of 6, so we did have a lot of junk, a lot of stuff to get in the house. But I do remember, I sincerely and vividly remember that we got our TV and our spot. We got the TV stand down. Man, this TV was like, let me tell you something, man. It must have been, I don't know, man, about a foot wide and a foot tall. And man, the back of this thing, if people know what I'm talking about from like the 90s and I guess early 2000s, man, this was one of those TVs, man. It was about as big as my couch. It was pretty long in the back there, and maybe a meager 40 inches, 40-inch screen TV, and that might be even stretching it, no pun intended. But the point is, we got that thing down. That was one of the first things we established. We've got our rabbit ears up because we weren't cable folk. We weren't as good as you guys. But we just weren't. We weren't in the mood to ever get cable. My dad believed in actually going out and doing things, kind of like getting off your cell phones. He envisioned us being people that were gonna go play sports or going to go out in the lawn and get muddy. We weren't allowed to stay in and watch cartoons all day or even on Saturdays. I do remember we had that a couple of shows that we like to watch on Saturday morning cartoons. That was like a Saturday morning. I think it was like Doug and Recess, things like that. But so we had the TV going, we had the rabbit ears in, and we knew it was that time. We knew it was time to sit down as a family and watch the ball game. Go ahead and wet your whistle and watch the ball game. And so, not to quote the movie with Jack Nicholson in the 70s, it's slipping me right now. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to go into town, get out of the psych ward, and go watch the ball game and wet his whistle. And so, this was back when you had the NBA on NBC, which there's rumors of that happening again, going back to NBC. But the NBA Finals was a time where you could watch a whole series. Sometimes you could watch some of the series games on the weekends for the conference semifinals and conference finals on NBC. But we were going to get the whole series here on the NBA on NBC. It was awesome. I loved it. I remember, speaking of NBA on NBC, I remember watching Ahmad Rashad on Saturdays talk about the NBA and all these storylines and all the happenings of the league. Ahmad Rashad, man, that was the guy. I loved the NBA on NBC. That was really dope. And so, but here we had 2001. Boy, did we have a great matchup. It was only my second year watching the finals. My first year was 2000. I was 9. So I was a youngin', but I was a young pup getting started early on the hoops, on the hardwood, watching the games and trying to emulate and kind of get my own game going on the court. Getting my skills, getting the passing and the vision for the game, the knowledge of the game, and getting all those things that get passed down. When you watch the game, you watch it with your dad, when he explains it to you, when you pick up on what's going on, in the game and the nuances of it. A student of the game, I should say. So, the first game, game 1, was in Staples Center. You had a pretty cool matchup. Nothing historic or anything, but pretty old franchises in the Philadelphia 76ers, led by my guy, Allen Iverson. He was on the court with a lot of nobodies. I guess the biggest somebody that was on his team was not known for much, but shot blocking, the giant 7-footer Dikembe Mutombo. And then you had Aaron McKee, you had Eric Snow, or some of the guards that were on the court with Iverson. I don't know how long it had been since they had appeared there, but they had just gotten there. And the Lakers were coming off a repeat appearance. They were the defending champs trying to get dethroned. They'd beaten the Pacers, Indiana Pacers, the previous season in the finals, led by Larry Bird coaching the Reggie Miller. And so now you had an upstart, kind of really a guy coming of age, and Allen Iverson. He'd gotten a big name for what he had done kind of off the court, and he'd gone to prison for, that's a whole other story. But, he'd gotten in trouble with the law. He'd finally kind of gotten that sheet clean, and he had played at Georgetown with the Georgetown Hoyas. Great art, great stories. There's a lot of good books out there about what he did. There's also good documentaries. I'm a book guy. Go read his book. And so when you look at kind of what he was about, kind of blue collar, kind of under the radar, kind of, the little engine that could, I should say, Mighty Mouse, small guy, barely hitting 6 feet tall, probably weighed more closer to like 160. And so that's where we were at with him. And on the other sideline, you had the nice, shiny gold and purple, royalty, the Lakers. They were led by Phil Jackson. The Sixers were coached by Larry Brown. But the Lakers, you had Kobe and Shaq, maybe the best duo literally of all time, man. The way that the Lakers orchestrated that and getting the trade for Kobe to bring him to La La Land, and then Shaq was just at the apex of his game, man. You could argue that he was the most dominant guy. I didn't like it. I didn't like this style of play. I thought it was all brute force, all dominance. Wasn't fun to watch. He just moved people around because he's a giant and strong and could just move guys with his body. But that's neither here nor there. So my childhood hero, as I was saying, Allen Iverson, man, he just had that ultimate maximum effort. Never shied away from going down low and mixing up with guys, even to try to swoop into the lane and score on Shaq. The cylinder, he would do that, and it was great. I remember a lot from that first game. The Sixers did steal it. They won in overtime. I remember late game, Allen Iverson had the iconic clips and photos of him stepping over Tyronn Lue, who's now the coach of the LA Clippers, when he'd made a couple of shots, and that was pretty epic. That was great. But they got it done. They kind of almost ruined it. They had the last shot in regulation with the score tied, but didn't get that good of a look. I think it was Eric Snow shot like a top of the key 3. And so I thought, oh no, they really need to get this game. They need to steal one to get a good position in this finals. And then when, it felt like the Lakers had kind of recovered from the shock of like what the Sixers had done, getting in this game, because the Lakers, if you'll note that year, had not lost a game in the playoffs. They had swept every team. I believe it was the Blazers in the first round. Conference semifinals were, I want to say Spurs. No, it wouldn't have been. It might have been Kings, Spurs, something like that. They swept through the playoffs without getting a loss. And they were in a quest for that second. They're in that quest for that number 2 championship. and eventually they did, and eventually it became a three-peat. But yeah, speaking of AI, the answer, I had his T-shirt. I cut it off and everything with his Sixers jerseys was printed on that shirt, white shirt, and that was a time when I probably weighed less than 100 pounds. Still had to make sure I cut the sleeves off. Wanted to be like Iverson. And probably not that many less LBs than my boy Allen Iverson, who, like I said, was barely pushing 6 foot. It was probably more like a 5'11", 5'10", and very, very slight. So that whole series, though, each game, man, I was earnestly watching with my dad, who introduced me to Iverson. He was kind of saying he was the next potential, the next Mike, the guy on the come up. And that opening win, I just was hoping that it was more than just a blimp on the screen for the Lakers, who won that series, but it wasn't. They won in 5. But I specifically, vividly remember each day after the game, after that night, the next day. The Cincinnati Enquirer didn't have kind of a read-up of the game because it was so late, but the Cincinnati Post, which is an afternoon paper, did. I remember getting that, and I liked the photos. I liked reading about it. Even if it was like an AP write-up, I really liked kind of getting that paper and made sure that was something I grabbed and read. Just couldn't get enough of the series. And as I said, my dad loved watching Iverson play, and what kid doesn't want to idolize what their dad likes? You want to make sure that your favorite player is your superhero. But for me, idolizing my dad, that's what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And so, I did whatever he did, whatever he thought. And so basketball and Allen Iverson, that's where I really probably of all time, that was probably my most favorite player. The man with the checkered in tattoos and stylish clothes, and the urban brother, and the regularly maintained cornrows. And I just really gravitated towards it. Had nothing to do with me, looked nothing like me, but I loved how different and how different walk of a life he had, and just what all he had going on, and how he looked. And I thought that was, for me, basketball was kind of what brought me to kind of really just tracking him and watching him and just seeing the way he moved on the court, man. He always just was fearless, always working hard, and that's something that a guy from Naperville and Cincinnati could really get into. And as I said, AI was what I referred to him as. No, there are other things that stand for AI, not just artificial intelligence, guys. He was truly an original. He had the crossover. He did things his way. He was an artist that we hadn't seen, and his game had never been done. And I really think that he was ahead of his time. There's a lot of players that put their stamp on the game with the way they play, and I mean, Allen Iverson was definitely one of them. You could almost liken him to, if you want to cross over into music, like Michael Jackson, the Beatles, like some of just those artists that just changed the game, and then everyone that followed after them really tried to emulate and copy them. I know a lot of people copied Michael Jackson's dance moves, like Justin Timberlake, or you look at like a guy like Chris Brown. There's a lot of people that wanted to be like the former people that inspired them, and I think Allen Iverson was definitely one of them. For me, for sure, he was, and what I was doing on the basketball court. I played basketball up until about sophomore year of high school, and for me, I just always wanted to be like him. I would be on the court. This was around the time of like 5th grade. I would be taking his moves that I saw on TV and just literally throwing them into the game and making sure that I wanted to do them, making sure that I could master them and just hey, what the heck, try it out on the game. I remember, the crossover was big. It's something I wanted to be a signature of what I could do in my skills. but also in terms of handling the ball, I liked. I remember one time trying to emulate for me his move where he goes down the floor to the basket on the right side of the rim and takes the ball and just takes it over, scoops it up and takes it over the right shoulder of the defender and then finishes at the rim. That was kind of a cool move I liked doing and something that I just picked up real quick. It was fun, a lot of fun. But yeah, I thought it was the start of him potentially regularly getting to the NBA Finals, but was I wrong? He never got back again, and I just thought it would. I thought it was in the cards. I thought it was in the story. I thought it was in the script. He had to get back, but it never did happen again. He never got that championship, and that just goes to show that an NBA Finals return, or an appearance, or a chip is an ode to anyone. All right, guys, this is Isaiah Swope, senior guard for the St. Louis Billikens men's basketball program. I'm going to give him a proper introduction here. He is a mid-major All-American, second-team Missouri Valley, as well as Missouri Valley Newcomer of the Year this past year. He was an NABC first-team All-District player, and as before that, he was with Southern Indiana, and he was a former first-teamer in the Ohio Valley Conference, as well as a second-team All-District player there. In his 3 years at the college level, he's got more than 1,300 points. Isaiah Swope, ladies and gents. Isaiah, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Hey man, it's great to have you. I wanted to get into this right now. So walk me through kind of when the final buzzer sounds there at the end of the championship game in the NIT, season's over, a lot to work out. Can you guys are in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Can you give me like if you had kind of a hunch that some of the main pieces, the five starters were kind of going to be maybe splitting or kind of parting the ways from that point and kind of like what that looks like, regardless whether or not Josh Schertz leaves, the transfer portal is always rampant. What can you tell me about, sort of kind of a feeling like maybe this is the end of the road for kind of this group?
You really don't know. After we lost, I think everybody was just upset about losing. Um, we had a chance to beat Drake, and we lost, and then we had a chance for another tournament title in a sense, and we lost to Seton Hall. So, just even though like we heard things about our coach and stuff, we had a whole season together, starting from the summer, just grinding hard, a lot of hours in the practice, and just build a bond with each of the guys on the team. So, whenever you lose together, it just hurts that much more.
And then, as you mentioned, you guys nearly got the auto bid qualifier with the Missouri Valley Conference title championship in the tournament. And then you also really just barely, by the skin of your teeth, ultimately had your bubble burst and didn't get the at-large selection. I guess historically speaking, getting Indiana State in that conversation for even an at-large, this past March. How enormous was that for Indiana State, do you feel like? And what does kind of the legacy of the squad you guys had and what you guys did the past year?
I think it was great. Overall, just for the city, for us individually, just collectively as a team. Winning brings happiness to everybody, like not only us, like our family, friends, like, it involves a lot more people. When you, like I said, when you involve winning. So, that's just great. And then for me, just coming to Terre Haute, I was nothing but like open arms and warm welcome. People just were very nice to me for my whole time being there. So, to be able to kind of, in a sense, repay that. Um, and I kind of feel forever indebted in that sense. But to like be able to fulfill like that same feeling back from just being able to play basketball and bring winning to Terre Haute, that feels good.
And then that was a really slim loss there in that NIT championship to Seton Hall. In that post game presser, Coach Schertz talked a lot about he said a lot, but the thing that definitely stood out to me was he called your guys a throwback group. Like what you guys had, what you guys held, how you guys carried yourselves. Not being really kind of a reference to not being kind of transactional. How much can you say that the way you guys carried yourselves, whether it was unselfishness, um, how much of a microcosm that bred last year's success and what you guys did last year and the way you played too.
I just think it was like we just had a team full of guys who just love basketball, and want to get better each and every day. And everybody had some different skill sets on the team, but our end goal for everybody is just everybody's just trying to win. So if that means you don't play some or you shoot the ball more, you don't shoot the ball more, whatever the case is, like if it involves winning, like we'll all be happy at the end of the day. So I just think since we all had that mindset, it was just kind of pretty easy to just transition into one team. Obviously, it took time, but I think you could see it when we played on the court.
Took time, but it definitely came together really fast, and was a one season type deal that really came together really quickly. What about second half of last season? I know you personally weren't necessarily feeling great. You had a lower extremity was hurting you and kind of ailing you for a lot of that time period of the season. But you look back to the non-conference slate. You had that game at the Breslin Center, obviously at MSU, Michigan State University. That was a big moment where Indiana State competed with a really strong team, and you were hitting, tough shot after tough shot. Not a lot of easy baskets there at the Breslin Center. Um, and you guys nearly spun the upset, didn't get it done. But what can you tell me about, just knowing that what I'm kind of arriving at is, you guys fought through that. You had to fight through kind of some ailments. And then ultimately, as I saw on the beat, I felt like Josh Schertz had to be, maybe more than one of the more public guys kind of in your corner, voicing his kind of support for you, but definitely someone that was kind of spurring you on to keep going and kind of and get through that. And, I know you later had, surgery, but what can you tell me about just kind of the way that Josh Schertz kind of helped you get through some of those moments or kind of prodded you on at that point? How much that kind of maybe ultimately made you want to, follow him to St. Louis?
I mean, even if like say nothing happened, I was completely fine, and like I'd still feel the same way. I just think overall, like, and when it comes to coach, like I'm very appreciative. I think he does a great job of like establishing like a real relationship, and he's always honest and upfront. So like whether it's basketball or not basketball, like he's more than just like a basketball coach when it comes to like his team and taking care of his guys. So I like from that aspect, like when you have somebody like that, you want to stay as close as possible to him. And then just from a standpoint of like the season, I've just been able just from especially from time off, just been able to just reflect on the season, just watch all the games, watch film, just see where I can get better. Because at the end of the day, like I was still able to play. I just want to, like I said, I remember how I felt last year, just mentally, just from losing. So we had two times to win a championship, and that was versus Drake, and then to go to the tournament, and that was versus Seton Hall to win the NIT. So there's just a lot of emotions involved overall in the whole season. Like ups and downs come with it. So I'm like I said, I'm really past that, but just really just trying to focus on seeing where I could get better. And like I said, I got a lot of film and still watching to this day. But just like I said, figuring out ways to try to get better each and every day.
And then, from the Ohio Valley Conference with Southern Indiana to the Missouri Valley Conference with the Trees. Now Isaiah Swope is going to Atlantic 10 with Salou. I wanted to hear from you, man. I remember a story actually. I think it was before the season started where you talked about how that first kind of preparation or that first week there in Evansville with Southern Indiana was very tiring and almost to the point where you're literally you're going to sleep. You're resting after the first couple conditioning practices. I know that was a story that really just kind of shows just kind of the grind, right? And just kind of the level that kind of the leap that you have to make in terms of conditioning from one level to the next. Um, but what can you share about me, man? I know you've talked with some people about being healthy and being ready to go for the season, but what can you say about rehabbing some of the injury that you had last year, how hard that was and just literally how much that took out of you and what that's been like for you, the fatigue wise.
I would say for last year, it was just more of like a mental battle. like I said, if it would be one thing if I wasn't able to play, then that's just a completely different story. But just the fact that I was able to play, I feel like that's more like a mental aspect and just figuring out different ways to get over that. And I could go different areas from preparation or just not knowing or just learning more. But like overall, I just feel like I said, coming in now, like I've just been focusing on mentally, just figuring out ways to get stronger. Because you never know what's gonna happen in the season. And then jump wise, like it was definitely a difference from the OVC to the NBC. Overall, just like players are just better. From a standpoint of like IQ wise. Everybody has skill though, but I think that's what separates you when it comes to there. And I'm assuming it'll be the same for here. Obviously we got to play and figuring out, but just from watching a few games, seeing a few teams play. That's what I kind of took for. But just making, like I said, for me, just making sure I'm as sharp as I can be, mentally wise, and I think that'll just carry me throughout the rest of the season for this upcoming year.
And you talk about mentally, but what about physically, rehab wise? Like, was that something that for you was also kind of comes into play in terms of mental, getting over the kind of the struggle or the boundaries around getting around an injury and rehabbing that?
Uh, I mean, I thought it would be, but I've actually been fine.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I want to play. I've been playing for like 3 or 4 weeks. I just got to be able to get clear. So that's just between the doctors over here. But I'm able to play. Like I said, I feel fine. My body feels great. Like overall, even throughout the rehab process, like it was new to me. But in a sense, it's just like working out. You know what I'm saying? You just got to show up every day, put in the time, and then eventually as time gets on, like you'll be able to like be clear to play on the floor. So, but it's honestly it's been great. I think it's kind of like the best thing that's kind of happened to me, just from a standpoint of I've been able to like reflect and just see where I can also get better at where I really didn't realize until things happen.
And then it's June 6th now today. So it's Celtics Mavericks game one tonight, the NBA Finals. I know I've talked to you about watching ball and maybe what can you tell me about getting into something like this? Are you picking a team? Are you picking games in terms of like what you think might happen? Any predictions or watching with some of the guys there at Salou?
Um, yeah, I'm going for the Mavs. To be honest, I don't know how many games. I just hope they win. But yeah, I'm assuming we don't have. I think we got practice later tonight, so we might miss a bit of the game. But if we were able to watch, I'm pretty sure we'd go somewhere and kick it and watch the game.
A lot of Kyrie Irving, man. Like for me, I remember talking to I was pulling a lot of the players on the Sycamores team last year, and a lot of them said Kyrie, man, that's the guy that they enjoy watching the most. They want to be most like, or they just like a lot of respect for, definitely.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I watch everybody from centers to point guards to you name it. So I just love basketball. So being able to just watch the different areas of the game, see how players play, see how they think. I just find it interesting.
And then right now, obviously there wasn't a lot of push for the WNBA coming into the year for me. Like I don't think I've seen a full game in a while. Uh and so that's it's kind of interesting, right? Because it's kind of generating a buzz. Like there kind of was a buzz like the last 2 years when Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese were in college. There were some other players as well. More of a buzz this past year too, and then now that's kind of trickling over in the WNBA. Probably not watching some games, Isaiah, but like, what can you tell me about? Is that something that is talked about, on Salou, within your team, or like, is this something that captivated you at Indiana State in terms of some of your players, just kind of noting like what Caitlin Clark was doing and just some of her passing and some of her shooting ability, which is really something you haven't seen in the women's game.
I honestly think it's kind of talked everywhere. I got three sisters, so and all my sisters play sports. They all play basketball, especially the youngest, who's a year older than me or younger than me.
Hmm.
She had the league pass, so like earlier this year, like we watched a whole bunch of a decent amount of games together in the beginning. And it's just fun to see overall with the sport of basketball just growing in general, with the men's and the women's side. Um, And I've learned a few things from my sister about different players this year, some different teams, just seeing overall play. And I've seen games like I watched some of the finals from in 2022. I watched all the final series, and then like I said, then obviously Kaylin and Angel, everybody's crossing over from college. And like I said, every that's kind of worldwide. But my sister Kai, she's put me on more of the WNBA and just let me know a few little things I didn't know about.
What's the jersey that Kai or any of your sisters are want to rock for in terms of WNBA right now?
WNBA. Her favorite player is Paige Beckers,
Hmm.
so she'll probably wait for her to cross over, and then that's what she'll mess with.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Isaiah. It's always a pleasure to just chop it up and chat about ball. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you. So that's Isaiah Swope, guys, combo guard for Salou men's basketball program. We got game one of the NBA Finals. We got the Boston Celtics versus the Dallas Mavericks. How they got there is how we're going to start off this segment. The Mavs topped the Clippers in the first round series in 6 games in the first round. Got it done. That was a 4-5 matchup in the Western Conference. And then they got the chance to play the Oklahoma City Thunder, the top seed in the West, a really young and up and coming budding team that was coming into the picture. They got that down in 6 games as well. If you'll recall, Luka Doncic, who's being considered one of the best in the world now, if not the best. I don't know. I think that's a little early. I feel like you got to pump your brakes a little bit on that prisoner of the moment stuff. I still think Nikola Jokic is still the Joker, is still the number one player. We'll leave that debate for another day. But like I said, Luka Doncic did miss 2 free throws in one of those games when they were tied, and that was a big deal. And they lost that game. Could have ended that one, I think, about a game earlier, and got past that, and then they took the first 3 games against the T-Wolves before in the Western Conference Finals before eventually taking that series in 5, a gentleman's sweep. And I will note that the Mavericks did drop game 1 of the first 2 rounds. Thought that was kind of interesting to know that they came back from losing the first 2 games if they are to lose the first game here tonight in Boston. And then you had the T-Wolves. They got that first game. But, yeah, all 3 series, the Mavericks also have won games 2 and 3. So they've always rebounded. Whether they won the first game, which was against the T-Wolves, or if they fell in the first one, they've rebounded to take a 2-1 lead. Just something to keep in mind. And then the Celtics, for how they got here, they beat a depleted Heat team in 5. They beat a depleted Cavs team in 5. That's the conference semis. The Celtics, the Heat were the first round. And the Eastern Conference Finals, they beat the Pacers in 4. So all 3 of those teams, though, were severely worn down from injuries. Kind of took a lot of the luster off of their run so far. They've a lot of pressure for them to honestly get to this stage, and it's not even just to get to the stage. They're kind of under fire to win the finals. Just when you look at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, that duo has been together for quite some time now. I mean, Jason Tatum's only 26. Jaylen Brown's pretty young too. But they've been so good early, and they've been good for so long that I do think that if they just get blown out in this series, or even if they lose this series, you might have to press restart or try to run it back maybe one more year, maybe. But it feels like this is a big moment for Jason Tatum. They have been to the finals once. They lost to Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors a few years back. I believe that was in 2020 or 2019. But yeah, so that's what we're looking at. I got 2 keys of this series for each team. Something I want to kind of highlight and just kind of reflect on here as this 7-game series gets going in Beantown and what between the Mavs and the C's. I want to start with the Mavs. I think Dallas needs to make sure they avoid having heavy legs on defense from exerting a lot of effort on defense. I think that's the key. I think Boston's balance, particularly filling in the hole from deep, with 5 starters who all shoot the ball over 35% from beyond the arc. And then you have a guy off the bench in Al Horford who also shoots the ball really well. There's going to be a lot of ground to cover. I expect to see a lot of perimeter play. The Celtics do live and die by the 3. I don't really get it. I think they've got more talent and ability than to do that, and to get more looks in the mid range, get more looks at the basket. But we'll see kind of how that is involved. But yeah, the 5 starters that shoot over 35% from deep are Kristaps Porzingis, Tatum, Brown, Derek White, Drew Holiday, and Al Horford. And I think they're a really sound both ways team, two-way team defense as well. And then for the Mavs also, I think they need to make, and like I said, the heavy legs go back to the free throws Doncic missed against the Thunder. So you want to guard against that, and I think there's just going to be a lot of ground to cover, where it's going to be interesting to see how these teams play. You look at the some of the teams that the Mavs played in the playoffs weren't great 3-point shooting teams. Were not great 3-point shooting teams. We'll get to that a little bit more here later. And then I think the Mavs, another key is Kyrie can't vanish. I think you just have to make sure that he's someone that is engaged on both ends of the floor. And I think Luka Doncic is going to play kind of that Superman role, and Kyrie's got that, Robin mentality to be the number 2. He's embraced that role, but I do think there have been stages in this postseason this year where Kyrie doesn't shoot the ball that much. I think he needs to remember that he's the number 2 threat, and he needs to be putting up enough shots that warrant kind of his ability and what he's at. I think 18 to 20 a game, 15 to 20 a game would be a great number for him to be at. But yeah, he needs to make sure he doesn't go missing in action at critical points in the game. So with that, we'll go to the Celtics keys, and that kind of leads me into closing and finishing. So I think the Celtics are well documented this year. They've won a lot of games by wide margins, and have kind of faltered or struggled there in terms of closing games out that are tighter. Legs get a little bit tighter. Thinking gets a little bit tighter. I think they need to find a finisher. I think Jason Tatum hasn't had the greatest year in terms of closing out games and making sure that things can happen, making sure that he can make the right decision at the end of the game, that make the right shot, take the shot, be someone that does kind of doubt those naysayers. I do think there's a lot of naysayers out there that say he's not a top 5 team player in the league right now. I didn't get top 5 for the MVP voting. So I think with a championship here, and if he leads them there, he'll be their best player, finals MVP. I think he'll kind of cement his role as like a top 3 player in the league and get a lot of people off his back. And he's only 26, so this could be the start of him really turning a corner. The narrative just will flip so much if this team can get a championship. But they do need to find that closer. I think it's him, but it could end up being someone else. Jaylen Brown had a big 3 last series when the Pacers to send the game to overtime when he hit a 3. So that's going to be something to note. And then you look at, I think Porzingis, man, is going to be almost like a real big pivotal player, series decider. I mean, the unicorn, that 7'2", sharpshooting big man from Latvia. I just think, and you look at some of the people that have shot threes, some of the scores that the Mavs have gone up against just haven't been great 3-point shooters. I mean, I pulled some numbers here. Chet Holmgren went 6 for 27 in the the Thunder series, Casey Wallace went 7 for 21. James Harden went 18 for 47. That's 38%. Paul George went 18 for 49. That's 36%. Those are kind of high volume 3-point shooters. But yeah, they've been some decent shooters. But I do think Porzingis is the best shooter that the Mavs have seen yet in the playoffs, and I think that's going to create a new look. And I think but so for Porzingis, I think he's coming off an injury. The Celtics need to make sure that he's a focal point for this offense, keep him healthy, but definitely get him his touches, get him his shots, and I think he's going to be that X factor. I think he could end up deciding the series. He's a player that can shoot. He's smart. He's a deep shooter. He's another player, another extension of the Celtics who can shoot, team that can shoot really well. And so now we're going to go to WNBA. I do want to note that it does feel like this is the first time that a lot of people are taking note of what the WNBA is doing. I think it's great. I do think it's going to be a little bit of a choppy transition for a lot of these pro women's basketball players to be in the spotlight or see how it is. Also, social media is completely always kind of rotating. You hear of what's going on with just so many different things around the league. The latest thing that I just heard is that someone tracked the Chicago Sky team bus and hotel in DC, and that someone was filming the athlete. It wasn't Clark. It was Kennedy Carter was getting off the bus, and a player confronted her about Caitlin Clark, how her heart found Caitlin Clark, and social media has been out of hand, and like some of these instances have been out of hand. I think the problem is people want to get into the limelight and they want to have their voice, but it's Bush League. I don't know how else to say it. Caitlin Clark doesn't need to be defended. She's going to take hard fouls. A lot of these players are going to take hard fouls. Rookies are going to have to take their lumps. But that's just kind of the way I see it. And that you're going to have to start protecting her in terms of some of these calls. But it's kind of getting out of hand here with how people are treating things. And so, these fanatics out there, these people, it's just not a good look. But I will say that all this is great. Pub, bad pub is good pub for the league. I do think the WNBA is relevant right now on several outlets, media outlets, TV, print, and that this has never happened for them. This kind of generated, support and attention, and kind of the conference being the league being the W association being relevant. It's just we're in a different time. We haven't seen this. I think everyone's talking about it. It's kind of like becoming now pop culture. And we'll have to see kind of how this class that came into the league affects things. But I do think social media has influenced some of that. You also saw a lot of ratings go up in the last couple of years in women's college basketball. So that's all affecting it too. And I think it's good stuff. I think it's really cool. And I think it's an opportunity now for the league to kind of capitalize on it, and they're relevant. As soon as these finals are over, they're going to be the main show for the summer. I think this summer is going to be really telling to kind of where the league's going and what they're doing. And I did note, or I did hear that Caitlin Clark has already played like double the games of some other teams, or she's played a lot. Just off the bat, off the rip. I know they're trying to get a lot of publicity and get a lot of attention for the league, and we'll see. And she hasn't played with she hasn't just lit the league on fire, and no rookie's going to, and that's not how it's supposed to be. But I do think once she gets it, once she figures it out, the physicality, the size, the speed, I think she's gonna be fine, and I think the league is gonna like that. And hey, the media is here to talk about it and highlight it. The players are here to stop her, right, on other teams. And then you have, but a lot of awareness being raised, and I think that the WNBA is capitalizing, and we'll see. To be continued. We'll see where the story goes. So with that, please subscribe to the YouTube channel for all the latest drops from Wide Nation of Sports. We are on Instagram, x.com, and Facebook. Peace, y'all.